Good afternoon, Patriot Nation. Today is March the 6th. 95% of the things that you have been hearing about or seeing that is related to the crisis in Ukraine, nothing more than completely fake propaganda distributed by the one world government cabal to try to force the entire free world into World War III. So, tonight we're going to be digging in a little bit into the motivations and the connections behind it all. And I'm also going to be talking a little bit about some disturbing news that I've been hearing about how governments within Europe are beginning to prepare for the worst case scenario. This is Patriot Nation. Well, everyone, I mean, it's been a crazy couple weeks. There is continually information that is developing amongst the situation in Ukraine right now. And it is becoming increasingly hard to tell what is real, what is fake, and what is purposely misleading and manufactured information that is being put out by the New World Order, the One World Government, the cabal, the deep state, whatever you want to call these scumbags. There is a very well organized effort, in my opinion, to push the free nations of this planet into the next world war. And unfortunately, looks like Ukraine is going to be the tipping point in this effort. And for, you know, I'm sure most of you, that follow this channel and other channels like this have, done a lot of research and you know exactly what is going on uh, outside of what you're being told by the propaganda machine. But for those that don't know, Ukraine's government was overthrown by the Obama administration, and the current government was put in place be another deep state puppet government that is friendly and sympathetic to the whole New World Order cause. And, since that time, they have been very well funded and supported by secret programs amongst the United States government as well as other governments throughout this world that are all part of the deep state, New World Order organization, whatever you want to call them. I just call them scumbag. Um, and a huge chunk of the cabal resources and finances have been in the Ukraine ever since because of the protections and the support that has been put in place in order to protect those assets. And so Ukraine has been the centerpiece for a lot of shady stuff that has been taking place ever since then. And when you look at some of the stuff that goes back to Iran, you look at a lot of the other plans for the whole one world government, New World Order stuff, Ukraine ties in with it all. I mean, Ukraine ties into all of Hunter Biden stuff. Ukraine even goes back to the whole uranium one scandal, which we'll get into more here in just a minute, because it plays a lot bigger part than what a lot of people realize into this whole organization that plans to control the planet. And, in a few videos back, we talked a lot about all of the resources and minerals, stuff that makes Ukraine a very attractive piece of land, but that was just one part of the bigger picture. So, some of the things that we're being told that I have found and I believe that are completely false and part of this made up propaganda that's being pushed by the New World Order is that Russian troops are not demoralized and they are not surrendering and just walking away from. I think that this is one of those things because especially Putin, but a lot of Russians, especially the whole staunch, you know, Soviet Union era Russians, are very, very prideful people. And so having strength and fighting to the death and all of this kind of stuff is huge for them. And so these scumbags in the one world government think that if they can demoralize these people and try to make it seem like they are losing, that either it's going to you know cause these guys to you know retreat and give up, it's going to embarrass Putin and make him make mistakes, or somehow, aid in their agenda. Um, another thing that is completely false is that from the research that I've been able to see is that the attacks that are being carried out are not just, random attacks. They're not purposely going in, taking out civilian, installations and buildings and attacking civilians. There is evidence after evidence upon evidence of civilians being evacuated before any major actions are taking place in these highly populated areas. And in fact, what is happening is that Russian troops are going after very specific targets. And so far, the biggest targets that they've gone after are the secret bioweapons labs that the deep state has built with the help of secret programs through the CIA and DOD, and they have been taking out those facilities. And I'm guessing that as part of this too, that they're also going after any bunkers and any financial uh, infrastructure that they have in place within Ukraine. But the bioweapons facilities are going to be probably the biggest threat, and so therefore they're going to be the biggest targets. And you don't hear a lot about this. You really have to do some digging to find out about these facilities in the first place. And that raises the question of, given the history of Ukraine and the corruption and the fact that Ukraine's not part of the UN, it's not part of NATO, it's kind of this little rebel country. Why is it that the United States has at least 8 secret bioweapons facilities in Ukraine? Why is it that these facilities, if they are truly out there to try to, work on, preventing things and it's trying to ensure a safe world, why are we not partnering with allies and having these facilities in our country or in their country? Why is it in a country like Ukraine that has a long history of going back to these corrupt one world governments? Most likely because the stuff that they are doing there is not exactly legitimate and it's not exactly designed to be in the well being of we the people. I think one of the things that is true, or at least partially true is the fact that it seems like the Russian military is having supply chain issues and is having problems getting gas and supplies to the troops because of the fact that they are kind of spread out. They're attacking on several fronts, and because of all of the weapons that are being sent in from the United States and Europe and England and other countries, that the Ukrainian troops are putting up a much higher, much stronger resistance than was expected. Again, there's a lot of propaganda coming out with this, so it also makes me wonder if that information on, you know, how much resistance is being put up, how much of that is accurate. I'm going to assume, just based upon the weapon systems that we've sent over and, the NATO state members have sent over, that, they are going to be able to put up a much higher level of resistance than they would without that equipment. So let's kind of backtrack a little bit, and talk some more about the completely fake information that's put out there. You know, theorize maybe a little bit about why that is being, because again, I mean, there's a war taking. You shouldn't have to fake images of a war that's taking place. If all of the things that are being done like you said they're being done, you should be able to just have to take video and pictures of it. You shouldn't have to manufacture those pictures. So one of the first things that really caught my eye, a week or so ago, I think when I first saw this come out, was there was video captured on a Fox News piece about the Ukrainian civilians taking up arms to fight off the Russian invaders. And so, in the video, they showed, some of the Ukrainian civilians taking up arms. And these two really stood out because, if you watch this quick and you're not really paying attention, it's a couple of guys holding AK-47s. But if you take a look, even, if you pause it, freeze frame it, screen cap it, you go start to realize that, okay, well, first of all, there's no detail on this gun. And second of all, when you start to look at the guns themselves, they are what looks to be about a quarter of an inch thick, which means that these are nothing more than fake guns. Most likely they are wood, and they've been spray painted black to look all, black guns are scary. And so when you look at this, it makes you really wonder, why would they be using fake guns when there's clearly a real war going on? Are civilians not being armed? Are these people actual civilians that are taking up arms to fight in this battle, or are they just simply actors that have been brought in to push this narrative? Because if they had actual civilians, they might say something or do something that goes against the agenda that's pushed. Again, if everything is taking place as you're saying it's taking place, why is there a need for all the fake theatrics? One of the other things that I've noticed is that there's been a lot of vague and questionable video surrounding this whole thing. I mean, from the early pictures of the supposed surveillance of, the Russian troop buildups to some of the fighting and other things taking place, you know, there's a ton of stock footage out there. And I mean, you got entire sites that are designed with stock footage to help people, to go through that don't have the resources to, stage all of these things for small productions or for, individual creators and for the YouTube Rumble community. And that is awesome. I mean, I've taken advantage of stuff like that myself uh, in my video making, even though that, compared to full time creators, the amount of stuff that I create is very small. Having stock footage available for things is, a huge benefit to small creators because it allows us to create content that otherwise we wouldn't have been able to create with the amount of time and resources that we have available to us. And so I in no way am trying to bash on any of the sites that have stock content available for people. But what does concern me is that when people go and take stock content and try to use it as this is breaking news, that this is happening, because it really diminishes the the legitimacy of what's being pushed out. And we are at a time in history where a great number of people that have, a decent brain find themselves questioning everything that is getting put out there simply because there has been so much fake and false stuff put out there, and so much of the real information is censored and removed. And so I was surprisingly shocked when I found out that some of the footage that's being pushed out there as news is actually cinematic footage from video games. And one of the video game studios is even suing over copyright infringement because footage from their game was used in these reports. And so we've got, we've got these fake soldiers with their fake guns, you know, on the news. And Fox News, by the way, it wasn't even CNN or MSNBC or any of the other, far left propaganda organizations. I mean, Fox has definitely gone more left wing over the last, 5, 6 years, but they're still not as bad as NBC or CNN or any of those guys. And so to see this kind of stuff broadcast out on there was, a little disturbing to me, because while I don't have a whole lot of faith, unfortunately, anymore in Fox News, I still didn't think that they would jump the shark like this and go full on pushing the whole New World Order propaganda. But you've got so much of this stuff going on that it's uh, there are times where I spend hours looking at stuff and wondering what is real and what is not real, and it makes it really hard because I want to do my best to make sure that the things that I am bringing to you are things that I have a reasonably high amount of certainty that it is factual and actual information. And it's not simply propaganda being pushed from one side or the other. And that is becoming increasingly harder to do because the corruption that, these people hold that are pulling all the strings is vast. And like I have said many times before, this isn't a Republican versus Democrat thing. This is a free world, we the people versus the evil scumbags of the New World Order scenario. Because the people that are pulling all the strings don't care if there's an R or a D behind your name. There is those that are going to rule and those that are going to be slaves to them. That's all they care about, ladies and gentlemen. There's going to be just as many slaves that have, you know, R's and D's by their name as each other. So that kind of brings me into a little bit more of the meat of this, and that, how does this all tie in? Well, as I've alluded to, and I think I've said on other videos too, is that what is going on right now is directly tied back to the whole New World Order, the Great Reset, the cabal, the deep state, whatever you want to call these, small group of people that either run or are trying to run the entire planet and are really pushing for this whole, New World Order with the one world government. And there have been so many things over the years that all tie in, and it goes back a lot farther than what I'm going to be talking about tonight, because I think this really does go back, to the 1400s, and there's something that's been in place and in play and has been working its way through centuries of trying to really push this control. But I think for the modern times, if you will, I think it all goes back to the Uranium One scandal. And I'm not going to be getting real deep into that. I think that a lot of people that are watching this probably are familiar with the whole Uranium One scandal and the Clintons and everybody else. But I've found some graphics that do a really pretty good job of showing kind of how this all ties in to each other. And so, we're going to kind of go over that real quick. There's been, I think, a lot of people that have probably gone in pretty in depth into this. And, if there's a desire for a lot of you guys that want to go more in depth into this, leave a comment down below. And, that's something that we can look on, putting together. I mean, this is a huge thing. It's going to take a lot of time to really put all the information to go deeper than what I'm going to go today. And, it'll be probably maybe a 2 or a 3-part show, just for the fact that, I don't like to have hour-long shows. It's just hard to, keep people's focus for that long. And I'm trying to keep this right around 30 minutes, 45 minutes today, so I can't go that deep into it. But again, if you want to hear more and you want to dig into this more, let me know down in the comments, and I'll work on trying to get to more in-depth shows specifically focused on this. But so if we look at kind of the history of the whole Uranium One, like I said, I mean, this goes back to, a lot of the big names. We've got, of course, the big players, the Clinton Foundation, Clinton Global Initiative. And so, of course, that's got the whole, Clintons right there. You've got Epstein that's tied into there. You've got freaking Obama. You got Rice. You've got, Comey, Mueller, Lynch, and you've got a lot of the, organizations that tie into all of these people. You've got more elected officials. You've got other countries. And let's see, can I move this over just a little bit? I mean, we've got, another big name right there that we've all talked about. Of course, we've got Ukraine, Iran, and Russia are a couple of the big countries that are involved in this. And they all kind of tie into all these other organizations. They go back to all these other countries and all these other people. But, you start looking at, who is all involved in here. We've got Hunter, we've got Joe, we've got good old Kerry, we've got, how McCain and Brennan were involved in ISIL and Benghazi. CrowdStrike has been kind of mixed in with a lot of this stuff. But, I think a lot of this, when you start looking at where this goes into, um, in my opinion, you're going to see a lot of uh, the Rothschilds, Schwabs, people like that at the top. I think, if I would have built this out, I think I would have had Soros up here, more towards the top, because I think that he is definitely one of the top players in all of this. But we've also got China in the mix with this, and so this is stuff that has been in the works for a long time, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, these are people that have. Well, let's go into this a little bit more in depth here. I mean, you've got, Clinton, the campaign, how it all ties into all these other people. You've got Fusion GPS that was been employed, and kind of tying into there. Um, Bump this up a little bit, and how they all work together to create this fake Trump dossier on the whole, Russian collusion thing. You've got, other elected officials and government officials that have been involved in this. Of course, you've got, the Department of Injustice, the FBI. You've got, you know, big old Barack himself that's, higher up in all of this thing. It all ties back again. John Brennan's in there, Harry Reid's in there, James Clapper's in there, Susan Rice is in there. All of these people all tie into all of this stuff. And, it started out with this, this fake Trump dossier to get the Pfizer surveillance stuff based upon fake information, and then spying to, you know, illegally, influence an election. You've got, leaks from Obama all going out to the propaganda sources. I mean, it's crazy. Um, all of this stuff, when you look at these scandals and these operations and the people that are involved, there's always the same people that are involved in it. And you see a lot of the same names that are there, and it's always, the Obamas, the Clinton, the Rothschilds, the Schwabs, the Soroses, all of these people. These guys are tied into all of this. So I think a lot of this all ties back into one thing, and that is the Great Reset. You've got all these other little sub programs, but when you look at the big picture, and this is a graphic directly from Klaus Schwab's publication on the Great Reset. And you can see here, we'll kind of just start at the top. There are a lot of things that, we're currently have been, experiencing extreme weather, natural disasters. You start to kind of go down the rabbit hole of what I thought was just crazy conspiracy talk, and that's weather manipulation. And you find out that it's not crazy conspiracy talk anymore. It's actually taking place. There are actual programs to study and manipulate the weather. And so I think a lot of this whole climate agenda is all being driven by the climate action and the weather manipulation to try to push this agenda, because when you look into the control factor, you've got a lot of things that are all dependent upon that up here. And then you take a look at another one of the keys down here. You've got involuntary migration. Well, you've got a whole lot of people that are flooding the United States for the last couple years that are going to overwhelm our infrastructure and our systems here. But now you start to look at what's going on in Ukraine. You've got, a couple million people that are being involuntarily migrated into other parts of Europe. And, a lot of these people aren't being vetted. They're not being checked. They're not being screened because, they're war refugees. And so basically all the rules and regulations get thrown out the door. And all these people get in unvetted and unchecked, and now they are getting pushed into all these other European countries. How many of them are good people? How many of them are bad people? How many of them are sick? How many of them aren't sick? Nobody knows any of that information, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, all of this is unknown, but again, it all falls into this whole agenda of the whole one world government, the great reset. You've got social instability. Where do you think all of the BLM and the Antifa riots are coming from and being funded by? Right here. You got a lot of cyber attacks. Again, it's listed right, as another one of the things that these people have in their plan. And so how many of these cyber attacks that are taking place throughout the infrastructure and throughout companies are like all again part of this whole great reset agenda. Unemployment here in the United States, you had 12 million people that quit their jobs in the fourth quarter of last year. You've got, you know, millions of people that don't want to work right now. You've got fiscal crisis. You've got inflation at record high levels. You've got energy costs skyrocketing. And now they're talking that, food prices are going to go up another 20% within the next month. You've got, gas prices, that are going to probably hit $7, $8 a gallon in some places here within the next few weeks. You've got, you know, uh, energy, I mean, like heating, cooling costs skyrocketing. You got transportation costs skyrocketing. I mean, everything is going to go up again now because of this. You've got a lot of Europe that has been dependent upon, Russian oil and gas. So if you live in Europe or, parts of that part of the world where Russia is sending you oil and gas for your energy needs, you're going to have it even worse because you're not going to have it there. And unfortunately, the Tommy Joe administration here in the United States won't do any more drilling and refining or oil production or gas production here in the United States so that we can export it out to help out. They want to do business with Iran. They want to, keep our production shut down to keep the cost high and to keep people poor. And so you've got all of this stuff that all ties back once again to this agenda of the Great Reset. And until people start to wake up and start to really understand, what's going on with this stuff, it's not going to get any better, ladies and gentlemen. And that brings me to the last thing for tonight's show, and that is that there has been a lot of very concerning information that I have been able to find talking about a lot of the things that the governments, especially in Europe, are doing. Anything from, you know, these Cold War bunkers that a lot of people thought were defunct. We're finding out that not only were they not actually defunct, that they've been maintained, but in the recent weeks, they have been stockpiling them, and the governments of those countries have been doing drills to evacuate their government leadership into these bunkers. You've got a lot of reports that Putin himself and his family is in some, huge underground bunker up in Siberia someplace. You've got a lot of the conspiracy, community talking about how all of the elites are all headed off to their bunkers. And it'd be interesting, if there's any information or any evidence of that happening here in the US because, like any other country, the US has a whole bunch of very huge bunkers throughout this country that was built, for situations that are going on right now. And while I don't think that the US preparing at that level is that high a probability because of I think a lot of the danger is going to be, within Europe. Um, but you've got countries calling for, all sorts of stuff that you would not have thought about. And one of the channels I follow is Canadian Prepper, and he always has some really good information on there about how to prepare for different things, and you know he is able to get because of the fact that he's in this niche. You know, he has relationships with vendors. It also has relationships with, governments and militaries and former and current, folks that are involved in all this. So he does have a lot of, very good and I found pretty darn accurate information that he gets, from the people that he associated with. And if you guys don't follow him, I do have the link to his page down below. I don't know him personally. I have no relationship with him. I just really enjoy the information that he has, and it's very good insight into a lot of different things. And lately, he's had some very good information on what's going on. And so I'm going to play, some of his latest video here with some information that I think is important and I wanted to share out with you guys.
So please stick with me throughout this video. We have a lot of things to talk about today. One thing you need to know is that things are bad and they're going to get a lot worse. This war is only starting. The next thing you need to know is that everything you're being told about how this thing is progressing is mostly false. Okay, it's mostly grade A BS. No matter what side you're hearing it from, it's false. We're going to talk about that more in a minute and the reason why that's so important. But I got a message today from one of my main suppliers of personal protective equipment. Okay, and I know the person personally who runs the company. They've asked that I don't disclose the company. You could probably make an inference on the basis of, how many different companies for personal protective equipment do we work with if you wanted to go and do some investigating. But just trust me, take my word for it. My word's been pretty good so far if you have been watching the channel in the last couple months. And I can tell you that government contractors right now are.
This is a full 3 months of food without needing any refrigeration or
And of
special
course,
storage. You're looking at our
scrambling to get safety gear as fast as they can. What do I mean by safety gear? I'm talking about gas masks. I'm talking about hazmat suits. I'm talking about radiation prevention pills. I'm talking about Geiger counters, dosimeters, stuff that you would need for a nuclear exchange. Okay, this company got an order for, I'm not going to say the exact amount, but it's in the tens of thousands, okay, of gas masks and various types of safety suits. This is not just an order like, hey, we need this order someday. No, this is we need this order in the next 48 hours. The same level of urgency that the Red Cross expressed to me when I talked with them a few weeks ago is the same level of urgency that is being required right now. Okay, and this stuff is going to Europe. It's not probably going to Europe. We know that it's going to Europe. So you have to ask yourself, why are they needing this stuff so fast? We've seen how things are escalating. Okay, and one thing I want to say is that everything you're hearing in the media and even a lot of the alternative media, I have basically been living, breathing, sleeping this problem for the last month and a half. And I can tell you that even a lot of the independent media voices have no idea what they're talking about, or they're missing one piece of the story. So go back and watch my videos on this topic if you want a more comprehensive understanding. And I by no means am an expert. but I can tell you that half the stuff you're hearing on the legacy networks is just 100%, it's lies, it's deception. I don't know if they're doing it because maybe they actually believe it. I don't know. But it's important that you understand the severity of the situation. No, the Russians are not, beat down and bogged down and demoralized. That's not the truth. In fact, I spoke with someone who is from Russia, and the opinion over there is entirely different. I thought it was that they were getting ready to revolt against Putin. And this person is telling me, no, it's the complete opposite of that for the majority of the population. There's a lot of stuff which is being put out right now to embolden and to increase the morale of the Ukrainians to fight for their country, which is something I firmly believe that they have the absolute right to do. I stand with anybody who is defending themselves from an invading force. But there, of course, is a backstory to that you cannot be ignorant to if you truly want to understand the situation. We've talked about that before. But you need to understand that, this is not, it's not going badly. It's not false planning. In the movies in Hollywood, how they always depict the bad guy or the terrorist guy as some kind of buffoon who, doesn't know how to, use a gun or blows himself up or just does something really dumb. That is exactly what's playing out right now in terms of our depiction of it, but that's not what's happening, okay? They are sweeping through that country inch by inch. Sure, they're losing a few guys. I think they estimated the death toll at around 500 or something like that. That's the real death toll as opposed to the 7,000, these wild numbers that are being pumped out. And of course, these numbers are being pumped out because you want to boost the morale, but that creates a false perception of what is actually going on. And if people are basing their moves that, oh, everything is going well on the Eastern Front, from our perspective, it's not. Okay, there's a reason why the UN is pushing NATO to get involved. And I do ultimately think that we will get involved. This is too big. It's too big of a country. It's too substantial from a geopolitical standpoint. We are likely being pulled into a long war, and everybody is going to get involved. And the fact that I got this message today, where one of the biggest suppliers of safety products in the United States, in the world for that matter, right now, is I'm fortunate enough to know the person personally on an individual level. And I can tell you guys that this is serious. They are buying up the stuff. Now, is this is not a cue for you to go and, drop a bunch of money on this stuff because, you can do that if you want to, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to just let you know.
And again, the full video is up on Canadian Prepper site, and I encourage you to go and watch that video and then some of the other videos over like the last week, because there is some very good information out there. And I think that he does a very good job of confirming a lot of the other stuff that I've been hearing in other places and throughout my research. And there is a much bigger story taking place, and the facts are very different from the information that we're hearing. And so I think it's very important that all of you that are listening to this out there, take a little extra time and make sure that you're prepared for, most likely here in the US, it'll probably just be kind of unrest and shortages again. Like I've been saying, I really don't think that the major risks are going to be here in the US. But if you are in other countries, especially throughout Europe, I think that you are a much higher risk for these type of high risk scenarios. And I encourage you to make sure that you're prepared for them. If you have, friends or family that live out in the country or outside of a city and you're in a major city, I encourage you all to try to have a evacuation plan in place and know how to get out of the city quickly. Unfortunately, being in any sort of a large urban environment in these kind of situations is never going to end up good, unfortunately. Most people that live in, major cities, even here in the United States, most people in San Francisco and Los Angeles and New York, and I mean, they don't have cars. They rely on public transportation. They Uber, they get a taxi. And so when you have to evacuate, we've got a problem. The other thing is that even though that not everybody has a vehicle, there are still a whole crap ton of people. And so if you are trying to get out at the last minute when everybody else is going to get out, it's going to be gridlock. There's going to be gas issues, all of that kind of stuff. So it's best to start kind of making sure that you have a plan in place and you know some alternative routes. And I would even look at having some sort of paper map and knowing how to use it to be able to navigate and get out of town in case there is anything that happens with the electronic meter. So I urge you all to stay prepared, stay informed, and to stay safe for God and country. Good night.